Welcome to the Daily Beast podcast. I'm Joanna Coles, Chief Content Officer of the Daily Beast.
And I am Samantha Bee, Chief Content Officer of The Conclave. Oh my God, so much is going on. Do not let JD Vance come within 50 feet of Joel Osteen. We can't lose another one this week. Joanna.
I know, it's panicking. It's panicking making. He is the ring. If you see JD Vance, you may die within 7 days.
You know what? If I met JD Vance, I feel like I too would lose the will to live. So, you know what? It tracks.
I will say that the photos of Usha Vance, the second lady, she looks increasingly depressed.
Oh, yeah. Increasingly depressed. And also photos of Marco Rubio. That is a human being who is withering inside. Ooh, doesn't even look like the same person.
Is he
He's earned
withering
it.
inside? Is he
Oh,
withering inside?
yes.
Do you
Oh,
think so?
yes. I do.
Well,
Yep.
you're in that case, you're ascribing to him a soul, which it's not clear to me he actually has. I would like to
Well,
think he was withering inside, because then he would be feeling
oh, yeah.
a level of ambiguity about what he's doing, but I'm not sure he does.
Well, I definitely think that he maybe used to have one, but now it's just slowly, and he's earned it. I mean, he has earned it. I mean, he has. Yeah,
He
he's
said, all
doing
right,
it.
so this is confusing. You're in Connecticut. I'm in Los Angeles. Your screen is frozen, so I can't see you moving, but I can hear your voice loud and clear. And you're back after
I
a
am.
week hitting the road on your How to Survive Menopause tour. How did it go?
It was very good. I'm having so much fun with it. I'm actually driving to Boston right after we finish this recording. And then the day that this airs, I will be in Philadelphia. So if you happen to be in the Philadelphia area and you feel like you want to laugh about menopause with a large group of people who are like-minded, please come by. I would love to see you. So fun.
Are you going to take your menopause show? When you say you're going to Boston, are you actually going to Harvard?
I'm not just going to the Boston area. I'm going to Boston proper. Yes.
Well, we need to discuss Harvard later with our Beast of the Week, Abby
We
Phillips,
do.
because she's an
Yes.
alum. I want to know exactly
Yes.
what she thinks about it. But in the meantime, you'll be delighted to know that Isaac Mizrahi did do a good job at filling in for you.
Yes, he did do a really good job. I listened to the episode and I thought he was actually too good at it, and it made me concerned that that I may be replaceable. You know, my favorite moment was when he said that he hates underlit grasses. And I
He's
thought,
he's
I
so
love you so
specific.
much. So specific.
Yeah, we were talking about the High Line, which she was complaining about, which I think is the most glorious thing. And he was
It's
like,
glorious.
darling, I hate it.
Yeah.
What did he say? I hate underlit grass.
Underlit grasses. I'm like, wow, I must have grown up wrong because I think underlit grasses are so beautiful.
I'm not even sure
Oh,
what underlit
no.
grasses are, but I do love the High Line. And if you haven't visited it and you're in New York, you really must.
Yes.
I did get used to him calling everybody darling, so maybe you could do that.
Darling, please, let's keep it going. It doesn't sound right. I'm too
It doesn't
Canadian
sound
for
right.
that.
I think it's more kind of darling with a bit of jazz hands.
I like to say this, Joanna.
Yeah,
That's more
better.
my vibe. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's better. When you're telling me off for trying to persuade someone to come on the podcast.
That's right.
So we've been having a very religious week so far. First, JD
Yes.
Vance met the Pope.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had the Easter egg roll at the White
Say
House.
that in quotation marks. He met the Pope.
Yeah.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, poor JD Vance. He can't get a break, can he?
You know what? He truly is one of those people that when he like swishes past, all the dogs start barking and the tulips die. You know what I mean? They like just like blacken like the interior of Marco Rubio's body.
The memes were fantastic. There was the
Yes.
one, my favorite meme was the fuck, marry, kill, where there was the sofa, there was the picture of Usha, and then there was the Pope.
Oh my God.
It's bad.
Again,
It's bad.
he's earned it. He's earned it. He really has.
Also, there's a moment where you build up so much, I guess, meme momentum that it's it's difficult for people to take you seriously, and I fear he's going into that territory.
Yeah. Oh, he's been there for a really long time.
Well, that leads us to looking ahead, because President Trump and Melania will be attending the funeral in Rome this coming Saturday, which is
I
a good
cannot.
reason Well, I really think they're doing it to avoid going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner.
Oh, that's very fair, but I have to say that if there was ever a moment, like when they cross the threshold into the basilica, like if there was ever a moment for the Lord to summon stigmata, you know what I mean? And just have just like or like tears from the Blessed Virgin's statue. You know what I mean? I would love to see that. Prove to me that you exist. Make all the statues do stuff.
I hate to be shallow, but I'm much more interested in what Melania's hat is going to look like.
It's gonna be huge. It's gonna
It's
be
gonna be
huge.
huge. It's
It's
gonna
gonna
be
be
huge.
so huge.
I'm also just holding my bag close to my
Mhm.
chest because
Yes.
that was some story about Christy Nome's bag being stolen with $3,000 in cash in it and her passport.
I'm sorry. Who carries $3,000 in their purse? That is s that's just a sketchy amount of money to have in your purse. I don't know anyone who does that.
Maybe she was planning to flee the country.
It's just a crazy amount of money to have in your purse and to then put your purse down and leave it unattended. I feel like there's a Beast story about how the perpetrator actually saw like, isn't she literally wearing a bulletproof vest and surrounded by security at all times of the day and night? Like, all of this theater.
She had 2 security guards with her, and apparently what happened, we had an excellent story in The Beast about it. The thief, who was caught on CCTV, I believe, came
Uh-huh,
in,
uh-huh.
obviously saw her bag, sat at the next table with his back to her, saw her
Okay.
bag was under her chair, where I think lots of women put their bags, slid
Sure.
his foot back, scooped the bag towards him, then pulled it up on his knee, put his jacket over the bag, and left the restaurant.
This is just a level of being so unaware of your surround this is really quite emblematic of all of these just careless people, like, to have so many identifying things in your bag, your pass, your passport, $3,000, everything you own, all your makeup, all your everything, your entire life is in this bag, and you just, like, put it on the floor. First of all, what kind of bag was it? Do we know?
I don't know what kind of bag it was,
I
but
wanna know.
it's such a metaphor, isn't it? And
It
also, I
really
got a
is.
slight delight in the idea of her having to fill out all those passport forms again and convince the passport office that it really was stolen. Because now someone's running around with her identity, right?
Yeah, well, she probably has an in at the State Department. I'm pretty sure she can secure another one quite quickly.
I just got my passports renewed. I've got 10 years until I need to renew them again. And
Good.
already I feel anxious about
Good.
just that
Well,
whole, the filling in the forms, the pressing the button, the waiting for it. The whole thing is so stressful. I don't know why AI can't do that.
I'm glad that you got it in under the wire because I think there's gonna be problems in the
I
future.
think there's going to be problems. I definitely think there's
Mm,
going to be problems, but there
yep.
won't be problems when we're joined by our Beast executive editor,
Mhm.
Hugh Doherty, and our
Yes.
Beast of the Week, Abby Phillip, CNN's
Yes.
Abby Phillip.
Can't wait.
What else have you been up to?
Oh my god, what have I been up to? I don't know, just touring. It's been kind of crazy. My head is spinning a little bit. I regrettably missed last week's interview with Andrew Cuomo.
You did. You did. You were supposed to be here for
I
it.
was, I was, but he backed out of our f when we were supposed to interview him, he was unable to do it, and then, I was scheduled to be away, so I missed it, and I was very prepared for that interview, so that was regrettable for me.
Well, we got a ton of feedback online.
I'm sure.
Lots of people felt that we had given him a very hard time and that we should have backed off.
Really?
And then a lot of people thought that we
Really?
hadn't given him a hard enough time.
Oh, yes.
So, you were missed. You were
Okay.
missed, but it was enormous fun and quite illuminating.
Mhm,
And,
mhm.
we'll see where things go in with the
Wow.
primaries, which are June the 24th, I believe.
People thought that you went too hard on him? I had so many hard questions for him.
Well, what would you have asked him that we didn't ask? Because I circled back to the
Yeah,
harassment charges, I think 3 times. 3 times I circled
I
back
do
to it.
feel that. I feel like the one thing or there were a few things that I would have, hit pretty hard, and that I think I would have talked more probably about, like, people's complex feelings toward him. Because on the one hand, a lot of us acknowledge that during his tenure, he did put policies in place that were good for women, but on the other hand, his behavior the behavior that he has been accused of is gross, it's paternalistic, and it's familiar, you know? We all hate that, we all hate the hand and the small of the back, and I really am concerned, like, I don't understand why he can't speak authentically about it. I don't feel that he speaks authentically about it, and I wanna know how he's personally planning to interact with the women in his administration moving forward. I really it's not like, we're not sitting here conflating his actions with those of, like, a Harvey Weinstein, but I think it's very reasonable to say that his administration fostered a culture that made women uncomfortable to the point that they spoke out about it at great personal risk, and he's still coming after them. Why isn't it okay for us to wish for our leaders to demonstrate good character? And, like, why is it okay to belittle those concerns or brush them off as, like, a joke or something stupid? Like, our rights are currently under assault. Belittling our very real concerns is discrimination on a very subtle scale. So I wanna know, like, how he intends, like, in what specific ways he intends to stand up for women right now. Like, is he planning to take an aggressive stance against harassment and assault on women in the workplace, in prisons, in domestic situations? How's he gonna convince someone like me who believes women, okay, that despite a plethora of reservations, we should vote for him anyway?
Well, the other reason I missed you was that we didn't get the chance to talk about the space trip in Blue Origin, Lauren Sanchez leading her band
Yes.
of women up to space and then
Oh,
claiming it was a
yes.
giant step forward for feminism, which I
Mhm,
really
mhm.
didn't think it was.
I loved your piece in the Daily Beast, I thought it was great.
Thank you. I did feel that um, they presented it as a sort of feminist cause, and I think they'd been shocked by the backlash because people were like, "This is ridiculous. Women are losing their rights across America, especially their
Mhm.
reproductive rights.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
Science is under threat like never before,
Mhm.
and you've got them screaming in space with enormous lashes." And they're up there for 11 minutes. And when they come down, Blue Origin's media team interviews Lauren and says, "Well, now you can add astronaut to your resume." And she does actually have an impressive resume, so she doesn't really
Sure.
need to add astronaut. And I'm not sure that 11 minutes in your boyfriend's rocket counts as being an astronaut, but she said very solemnly, "Thank you, thank you."
Thank you, thank you.
And
I
then
am an
screamed,
astronaut.
"Where are my babies?" as if she'd been, bobbing
Oh,
around at sea for 3.5 months
oh my god.
eating seagulls.
Yeah, meanwhile, Planned Parenthood just announced that it's selling the building of its only Manhattan clinic. So, like, we actually have bigger fish to fry in many ways.
And women in science, women in
Yes.
science have issues too. So it felt like a miss to me, that trip.
A mess, and most federal funding for women's health studies about women's health, like, all of that shit is gone. It has been like, Doge went in, and it has been removed from the schedule, so I just don't know.
It just seemed incredible that they would do it after the astronauts were stuck up there for 9 months
Yeah,
and had to be brought back down by SpaceX. And then they're up there for 11 minutes pretending that, and then coming down and kissing the earth. The whole thing felt absurd.
I'm really, like, learning that as I get older, I'm so not interested in theater, like, in theater of any kind. Like, I don't wanna witness the theater of spending millions and millions and millions of dollars putting rock stars into space for 11 minutes, and I don't wanna witness the political theater of Kristi Noem with her flak jacket standing in front in a men's penitentiary in El Salvador. Meanwhile, she can't even protect her fucking purse underneath her dinner table. Like, I'm not into it.
I know, she
Need
can't
something
protect her
real.
purse, that's not good, and the security that she had didn't notice that the guy had taken her bag. It's like, what are they doing? It's such a metaphor.
A guy with a mask is reaching under the whatever. I mean, Jesus Christ, we've all had bag moments where we went, "Where's my bag?" But this is just next level. It could happen to anyone, I gather. Yes, that's true, but not when you're surrounded by security and where security is in the name of your job, and that's your whole thing, that you're so tough. Meanwhile, you're like, "Let me put everything in a sack and stick it under this ta" So stupid. Idiots.
Welcome back. We're joined now by our most incisive return guest, even if you can't always understand his accent, Hugh Doherty, who's the executive editor of the Daily Beast. Hugh, we always need to talk to you, but we particularly need your insight this week because there's yet another new Pete Hegseth scandal that we need you to explain it all. Also, yesterday, I was busy doing a board meeting yesterday, so I missed the news and I felt like I'd been away for 3 weeks in terms of Hexathia.
My God, what is
Joanna,
happening?
thank you for having me back. Sam, thank you for being back.
Oh,
Do we want to talk about the lunacy, the incompetence, the ignorance, or the chaos? I'm quoting our great columnist David Rothkopf there, who says that Hexeth is only the tip of the iceberg, but he is a very, very pointed tip. It's been quite a week in the world of Pete Hegseth. It's going to be, I think, quite a few for the next few days, quite a dramatic few days as well. So, as everybody I think by now knows, he had one secret signal chat going, to which a journalist was accidentally joined.
This was the one that Jeff Goldberg from The Atlantic was put on by Mike Waltz by accident.
Exactly. It turns out that that wasn't the only secret signal chat that Pete had. On his personal phone, he had Defense Huddle, and unfortunately, I wasn't a member. And to the best of my knowledge, Joanna and Sam, you were not members either.
Well, we can't possibly say.
from your
Well,
lips to
that's
God's
true. You may
ears.
be on the third signal chat.
I wanna get invited.
We all kind of feel a bit insulted, don't we? Because, well, we do know something about what it takes to be on Pete's Hegseth signal group. And it was his wife, his third wife, Jennifer, his emotional support brother, Phil, his personal spokesman, Sean Parnell, who, like him, is a combat veteran who has also had some family troubles, and his personal lawyer, Tim Parlatore. And on this group, it appears that Pete Hegseth was copying the battle plans sent by CENTCOM's commander and pasting them so that his wife, his brother, and his lawyer all knew exactly when FA-18 Hornets were taking off to bomb the Houthis.
Why?
We don't yet know what emojis were used.
What was he what okay, the signal of it I mean, I'm not even putting the signal of it aside. Why would his wife need that information? Like, in what world
Well,
are
maybe she's
would
very demanding. Maybe she's like, "Why haven't you called me?" And he's like, "Here's why I haven't called you." Maybe she's because she is the third wife, and it has he's had a complicated romantic time. So I don't find it difficult to believe that she doesn't trust him, and she insists on knowing where he is every single second of the
Well,
day.
helpfully, she almost doesn't need to insist on knowing where she is because she is with him in the Pentagon almost all the time. She has been in meetings, and the Pentagon says through its spokesman, Sean Parnell, who, as I say, is one of Hegseth's best friends, that she has never been present for classified or secret information. But we have learned as well that they were looking to get her a security clearance so that she could, in fact, take part in these secrets. You're right, Joanna, has a complicated background with Pete.
can you get fired just for being dumb? And if not, why not? Just it's more a comment than a question. I think the answer is no one fires you for just being so dumb.
I'm going to turn to the words of one of our other columnists, Michael Ian Black, who has written an absolute must-read column that you will find in the Daily Beast. And he has come, as he says, not to bury Pete Hegseth, but to praise him. And he points out that Pete Hegseth is a man who has demonstrated, as just to quote Michael Ian Black, one need not possess talent, discipline, nor intellect to rise to this nation's greatest heights, and that he is the perfect defense secretary for a president who thrives on total chaos. So it may be, Sam, that we have some answer there.
He really reminds me of, like, when Rick Perry took over, he was this cabinet secretary, and everyone in Texas, I think, called him, like, Governor Haircut. I feel like Trump loves Pete Hegseth's hair, and that's why he's in the job. I mean, Joanna, you think of him
Well, he
more
has
as,
got
like,
good hair.
you think of him more as Secretary American Girl Doll.
I do, because to me, I just take one look at him and he's all with his accessories and his stars and stripes accessories, his pocket jeep, his socks, his weird tats, his multiple wives. So there's a lot to buy there. If you were going to bring him out as a doll, there's all sorts of accessory dolls, which means there's revenue opportunities around him.
You're just multiplying the revenue around
And
him.
the Ice Barbie companion doll would do well as well.
Exactly right. And then he comes with a family because, as you say, he's got his emotional support brother. It's fascinating. But I
And
think
as you
there was
know, he also has, between him and his third wife, they have 7 children. And we saw them this week at the Easter egg roll. He made his first comments in defense of himself to the media who were present, just to report on a very traditional occasion. People bring children, cabinet members, aides, bring children
the
to Easter
president
egg
even
roll.
brought his wife. Melania even showed up.
The
Jesus.
president, Melania, did indeed make a rare appearance while the president was colouring in. She was reading some storybooks to children. And off in another part of the enclosure, Pete Hegseth had his children gather around him as he offered a very trenchant defence of himself against the media. And he sought out the cameras, he stared right into them, and his children behind him became, I think, avatars for how many people around Pete Hegseth feel right now, that they were covering their faces and beginning to shrink away from their 44-year-old father or stepfather.
Wow.
And it's the spectacle that's going on in the Pentagon, of course, could only happen under Trump. It's only, as I just like to point out, we're not at the first 100 days. And there is a lot of speculation whether Pete Hegseth is going to be replaced, whether Trump has lost confidence. Is he looking for replacements? We have had very bullish public statements from Trump, but the value of a Trump endorsement can go down as well as up.
This is also because Pete Hegseth has had to fire several people himself from his department, right? Who've then gone, what is the term where they turn against him and say, well, there's so much more chaos to come. We've seen the inside of this and you haven't seen anything yet.
Yes, so Hegseth has sidelined his chief of staff, fired a number of a number of aides and advisors. And what's worth pointing out is that all of these people were brought in by Pete Hegseth. So he's talked about the deep state being up against him, but these are the people that he brought himself to the Pentagon, and they have briefed against each other, and they have also been out in public putting their own case. One of them went on Tucker Carlson. He's a guy called Dan Caldwell, and he had, he's got a long history in government, or in Republican politics, and advisor posts in government. He went on Tucker Carlson, and he said that he was a victim of personal vendettas. And Pete Hegseth has said that he's fired leakers. This guy, Dan Caldwell, denied that he was a leaker. And just to give you a flavor of Trump world, Tucker asked him who the other leakers might be, and he suggested the leaks are coming from somebody who worked for George W. Bush and from Susan Rice, who was a national security advisor to Barack Obama and Homeland Security and home policy advisor to Joe Biden. So it seems unlikely that she's leaking the secrets of Pete Hegseth's Pentagon, but that's who they wanted to blame. So there's a lot of dimensions of this chaos. And I haven't even mentioned the strip club.
Oh, what? Wait, what? Say more. I had a thought, but I'm holding it for this.
One of these advisors, Joe Casper, who was the chief of staff and who Hegseth described as a great American, as he also announced that this great American was now conducting special projects. And anybody that's ever been moved to a special projects role knows what that means. This advisor, it was revealed, had gone to a meeting with veterans groups and instead of sticking to the agenda, had discussed how he had been to a strip club with somebody else that was in the room.
That's great. What I wanted to say was that usually, I mean, I know that he was saying, like, the people who are all against me, they're just disgruntled ex-employees. And I was like, no, 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 no. You say that they're disgruntled ex-employees when they complain about you anonymously. But when they stand up, all four of them, and say their names and say how bad you are at your job, that's not a disgruntled ex-employee anymore. That's a person who is actually standing up to how bad you are at your job, and that is very different vibe. Very different vibe. Thank you.
And there was a Freudian slip on one of his favorite Fox News shows, I think, when they described him as the former defense secretary. So I think
I didn't see that.
there's a lot of selling shares going on right now, but I suspect sell shares in Pete Hegseth. Is that the right
Wow.
thing to take away from this conversation, Hugh?
I never want to make predictions, and there are people who are selling stock actively in Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
As we
I'm
all
gonna short
know, the
sell.
Trump
I'm gonna
stock
short
market
sell.
can go down as well as up within minutes.
Hugh, thank you for your extreme perception around Hegsethia, Hegsethland, whatever we call it, Hegland, Heggate. I saw David Rothkopf called it Hegsethgate. That felt too long. I think it should just be Hegsgate.
Hegsgate. Oh.
Heggers. If he was in Britain, he would be referred to as Heggers. And by now he would have gone because he wouldn't have withstood the nickname.
He would be, and on that basis, I think I'll rename our secret signal group Heggers. And
Oh,
Pete, if
that's
you
so
want to join
fun.
us, you know where we are. And I know you've got a lot of signal groups to juggle, but you are welcome to ours at any time.
We should make one and then we'll invite him and we'll call ourselves something important and he'll just believe it. Like, he's not gonna double check. He's not a double checker.
The thing I feel is particularly odd is precisely because he was a combat veteran, you would think that he would take more care with the information because he's actually been, I think he was in Iraq and Afghanistan. So he actually knows the danger of our service people on the ground. He's experienced it. So to be so casual with classified information seems
Joanna,
doubly
his
odd.
head is as empty as an American boy doll. You called it. There isn't much in there.
Well, at least he's got good stars and striped socks. Hugh, thank you very much for coming on, and I will look forward to seeing you back. Oh, I'll see you at the White House Correspondents' Weekend.
Yes,
Ooh.
I will see you there. And Sam, I'll see you in Signal.
Yes. Oh, please. I pray.
Don't tell Joanna about our secret group.
My dream.
Thank you for having me.
We are back, and we are joined by our beast of the week, journalist Abby Phillip. Abby joined CNN in 2017, first as the host of Inside Politics and now as host of CNN's Newsnight, which airs weeknights at 10 p.m. And she's the host of the digital service Table for Five. Abby is known for being one of the youngest people to ever moderate a Democratic presidential candidate debate, and currently does the not-so-simple task of reporting on the day's biggest stories while interviewing its biggest players. Abby, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Joanna and Sam.
Oh my gosh, what a pleasure. Okay, I have a very important question that I have to ask you right out of the gate, which is, what in the world do you all talk about during commercial breaks? Because it gets so hot in there.
Well,
Oh,
Joanna's been there before, so she
yes.
knows. Sometimes it's eerily quiet,
Okay.
sometimes. But I would say most of the time, people are like talking about a lot of random things, their kids, their pets, like their chickens, you know. It's like, I actually think that's what people don't get is how collegial people are when they're not screaming at each other on television. And so, sometimes also the debate like goes into the break. That also
That
happens.
happens. Okay, that makes sense. I feel like are people as collegial now as they used to be? Because that used to be just kind of the atmosphere in politics, that it was like fight, 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 but we're all kind of getting a drink after. Like everybody's meeting up at the bar for some dark liquor.
Yeah. Look, people are meeting up after the show for drinks. That is
Okay.
happening a lot.
I've
Mhm.
never met anybody after the show for drinks. I just would like to say,
Joanna's never been invited.
yeah,
You're too
Michael has never
cool.
asked me for drinks. Scott Jennings never asked me for drinks. Just
Oh,
saying.
Well,
okay.
Cher Michael was on the show and recently and was like, um, said to someone on the air, "Oh, we text about this all the time." And I was like, "Huh? You guys are texting buddies?" On they were like completely opposites politically, but I also look, I think actually that before because I used to when I first started in journalism, it was like the before times. It was like
Right.
Obama and everybody was, to quote Pete Hegseth, go along to get along, whatever. I mean, people were just sort of chummy. And I actually think that there was not a lot of real disagreement. I think people kind of talk past each other on TV most times, which makes it really easy for people to then be like, okay, well, let's go to the bar and, hang out. I think what we do can be a lot tougher because sometimes we really are getting into it and people are honestly encouraged to get their disagreements out and to air the differences between them. And so when they do that and then they turn around and they can still talk to each other and they can still be friends. And I think that's actually a healthy sign.
Abby, sometimes I feel when I've done the show that especially the more right wing or the more conservative commentators are performing for an audience of one, and
Yeah.
that's the president. Do you get much feedback from the administration that they're watching the show?
I have heard from several people close to the administration that they do watch or that President Trump specifically watches. So great, cool. But look, I do think that it's not necessarily about our show. I think it's about Republican politics. Everybody is performing for an audience of one, which is Donald Trump. And so in Republican politics today, you can't really get caught if you want to be kind of MAGA aligned. You cannot get caught disagreeing with Trump publicly, or at least of all on television, or at least that's the perception that a lot of people have. That being said, some of the people who come on the show who are very close to Trump in the White House, David Urban, um, Brian Lanza, they, I think, have a bit of a balance. I think for the most part, maybe they're an 80, 85% MAGA aligned, but there are times when they can express disagreement. So I think it's just a fear thing, maybe that some people have, where they're like, they don't want to be seen as giving in to the left on television.
Right.
And so yes, but look, it's TV. I mean, I think that all of it is in a way a bit of a performance on the part of a lot of people that come on.
Yeah, I mean, well, for Donald Trump, it seems like the whole world, like the world that he has created is television. Everything is a television show for him. And so he watches those performances so keenly. Like I thought it was really telling that you couldn't even really get Scott Jennings to give you a yes or no answer on a very simple question the other day. Like it just about Jerome Powell.
Yeah. Should the Fed be independent or
Yeah.
not? You were like the consummate. I think of you as a dinner party host who remains calm while everybody else is yelling
Mhm.
around you. It's extraordinary the way you do that. But first of all, is Scott Jennings on Ozempic? Because he seems to have lost a lot of weight since he's been doing the show.
I have no idea.
I feel like he's really slimmed down.
I have no idea.
He's really lost some weight.
I don't want to speak for Scott on that. You should bring him on the show, Joanna, and ask him.
We totally should. Very good idea.
The stress of the show is not responsible for any weight loss, and I certainly have not lost any weight doing this show.
What is your guiding ethos? Like how do you I mean, I guess how do you set the schedule for the show? At what time do you decide what guests are going to be on? What topics you're going to cover? Like How is that
Yeah.
set? What is the technical?
Usually around like 1 or 2 in the afternoon, my executive producer and I are kind of solidifying generally what we wanna do, but I actually usually hope that that changes because I don't like setting the show at like 10 in the morning
Right.
and then at 10 at night, it's the same show. I would much rather the show feel responsive and energetic and kind of like in the moment of what's happening and a little bit spontaneous because I think that's actually the important part of it is like, are we responding to what's happening in the news? Are we nimble? Are we able to really take on anything? And that's why our guests have to be people who can talk about anything. There are a lot of smart people out there on a whole host of topics, on politics, on whatever. But there are many fewer people who have that versatility across topics and who can talk culture, who can talk politics and economics and whatever, music.
This is making me feel better because I feel like I get the call from your show at about 5:36, and I always think to myself, "Oh, someone's fallen out. They're clearly desperate, and they've called me." But now I'm going to reinterpret it as, "Oh, they're trying to keep it spontaneous,
Yes.
and that's why they're putting it all together at the last minute." I will say it's enormous. It's enormous fun to do. But Abby, you're 36. How many of your friends do you know who watch television now? I feel like everybody gets their diet of news from TikTok. I want to know what your diet of news is.
Yeah. I mean, not even I watch television, to be honest.
You have to watch television, and the president watches television, right?
Right.
Which is audience of one. But the general viewership has shifted onto digital. Do you think that you'll still be doing this in 3 or 4 years' time? Or do you think you will have moved to TikTok?
Uh, I don't know if TikTok pays, to be honest, but look, I 3 to 4 years, something like this will be still going on for sure. But you're right. I mean, my peers are not watching TV. And I joke when I say I don't watch TV, but that's I mean, I have to watch some television, but if I were not, like, doing this, I think it would be hard to find the time to sit down in front of a TV and, sit there and watch it, and so I think a lot of my peers, when they watch my show, what they're watching are clips of my show online and on TikTok and on Instagram and on X and wherever. And that's cool too, because I actually think those platforms need to be fed by things like our show. Like they need the raw content to fuel those algorithms. Eventually, we're going to have to um, just be native on those platforms in a way that we are not right now. And that's going to happen very, very soon. I mean, do I think that CNN and cable are going away in less than 5 years? No, I really do not. It's almost like how when I was in college, everybody told me that newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post wouldn't exist. And then 5 years later, I was working at the Washington Post and it had just been bought by Jeff Bezos and all of that. So I've seen these kind of evolutions of the medium but I do think that we have to figure that other piece out and trying to figure out how to not just go viral, but just create viral native things that start there first. And we haven't figured it out yet. It's easier said than done. And I think fundamentally the kind of content that works online is a little bit different, but something that we're doing is resonating because Newsnight clips go insanely viral all the
They
time.
really do. Yeah.
They go viral on The Beast. I mean, we run a lot of them
Yeah.
on the Daily Beast because our readers love them.
My only beef with that is like not the Daily Beast, but beef with the virality of certain clips is that it's so subjective to the ideology of the person clipping it. So the conservative clips go viral and then the liberal clips go viral. And I don't, as somebody who does the show, I don't think it's representative of what happens on the show. But I think that's how the internet works. And we have to figure out how to make that work in a way that I think best represents the totality of what we're producing.
You have such a, as Joanna was mentioning before, you have such a calming presence in the middle, and many of the interviews or like the panels just kind of erupt. I mean, they can be a little bit volcanic. And I wonder how hard you have to work sometimes to not dive into the emotion of it.
How many Xanax are you taking?
My God.
I would recommend having 5 siblings like I
Oh,
did and start there because I'm pretty used to kind of like being in the center of a cacophony. It's
mhm.
just like what I'm used to. And so that is not, I think that's part of where it comes from is that chaos, I don't feel like I need to be in it necessarily. And also I don't want to stop the eruption from happening necessarily, right? Because this is real emotion, right? We want people to get real. And if they're worked up about it, so be it. The where I step in is to say, okay, shut up for a second. You guys are all talking at the same time. We cannot hear each other, that type of thing. And so I try to weigh my moments. But on the topic of like what gets me worked up, I would say the thing that gets me worked up is bad faith arguments more than anything else. I actually think it's totally cool to disagree on policy, priorities, strategy, whatever, right? What gets me irritated is when people are misleading or lying, or when I know that you know that what you're saying is not true, or that you really don't believe it, but you're saying it because it's something that is combative to say. And I think that's where you mentioned recently, the yes or no questions, right, are really problematic for people with political backgrounds because they don't ever want to say yes or no and be boxed in. But some things are yes or no. And
Yeah.
your inability to say that, I think, you're telling on yourself
Right.
because what you're saying essentially is that the performance of not agreeing with someone is more important than what you actually believe or what the actual truth is. And I think that my role is in some ways as an anchor in this format is to be a bit of a representative for the people at home who are like, you're not answering the question. Just answer the question. Or like, that doesn't make any sense.
I really appreciated that. I felt that you really hunted Scott Jennings down on that, and you finally got him to actually answer the question, sort of.
Well, I also think if you believe something controversial, own it.
Yes.
Like, go ahead. If you think that what should happen is that the president should direct the Fed, then great. But you
Yeah.
got to own it. Don't try to slide in. You don't try to slide into your position without actually taking ownership of what it means. And I think that's an important part of what I try to get people to do is like, let's really understand what you're saying here, and let's take all the frills away, the wordsmithing away, and really get to the heart of the matter.
Okay, so Abby, you talk about owning it or owning the idea, and earlier you referenced the fact you worked at the Washington Post. How do you think Jeff Bezos is emerging right now as the owner of the Washington Post?
I think it's like all the other people of his class who are businessmen in the tech world who have business before this government. They're all trying to figure out how to get close to Trump. And I think that it's unfortunate what's happened at the Post. I mean, it's sad to watch that paper. What I grew up in Maryland, it's my hometown paper. It was my dream to work there. And I loved working there. And I worked there after he bought the paper when he infused it with funds, and Marty Baron was there, and I was part of the team that was helping to kind of make the Washington Post quicker online and sort of develop a more of a digital identity around breaking news. And so it was actually a great time. And I think it's very telling that some of those very people that I worked with then are all gone now. All of them.
And do you still read it?
I do, yeah. And I think that the people who are working there are fighting the good fight. It's just really hard to see that kind of institutional knowledge, which is what makes the Post great, go out the door. I think that we cannot underestimate the degree to which that hurts a paper of the Washington Post caliber.
Let me ask you this. If you could accidentally be added to a signal chat by a cabinet secretary, which one would you want it to be? What would you like it to be about?
Okay,
Mm,
who's my favorite
oh, yeah.
cabinet secretary?
Yes.
So many of them, so many to choose from.
So many.
Maybe Christy Nome.
Mm, mhm.
I need to know what happened with the purse
We've just been
Oh,
and the
discussing her bag.
$3,000 in cash. I must know. This is
yes.
of utmost
I
importance.
think she was planning to flee the country. She had a passport, she had $3,000
Passport.
in cash,
Yeah,
which if you're from North Dakota, probably you think's gonna get you a long way. And
the passport thing is what got me on that story. It's also like even more incredible because as the head of the Department of Homeland Security, which I mean basically is like responsible for who gets to be here or not and who gets to come back into the country, having your passport, I'm like, who travels with their passport
Like, what
domestically?
in the world is
that's why I think she was
happening?
planning to flee. I think she was planning to flee.
I just want to know more. I just pure curiosity. I want to be on the because I feel like there's stuff happening that would be interesting to be accidentally invited in on in terms of conversation
Oh
over there.
my gosh, no kidding. I don't that is like, you know what? That's like 2 members of a family traveling on separate planes. You never put all the things that are important in your life and valuable in one sack. And then if you do, you'll have to strap it to your body. Like,
Also,
what?
can you imagine being that thief? Because once they catch him, and they will because it was on CCTV, right? He's gonna be sent to El Salvador. I mean,
Oh,
what
yeah.
a
Oh,
mistake to
yeah.
take her bag. That
Oh,
is the
yeah.
one person you do not want to.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it. And but I still don't understand how that could happen. But you know,
Well, you have to read
there
the story in The Beast, Abby, because we describe how the guy comes in, sits in a chair facing her back. So he's got her back to her back, and then she's put her bag under the chair, and he slides his leg back and pulls the bag towards him, and
what
then
kind of
puts his
bag was it,
jacket.
Joanna?
I don't know. That's the bit I don't know.
My god, I asked the same question. I wanna know. I wanna know.
Because if it was like a Birkin or something, it's like, I mean, don't put it under the chair.
I think it was a Gucci bag. I think I read it was a $3,000 or $4,000 bag, and she was also spotted wearing a very expensive Rolex.
Yes, she has been wearing that $60,000 Rolex,
My
including
god.
to El Salvador.
These people,
So,
I wouldn't trust a person carrying $3,000 cash in their bag plus a passport. I wouldn't trust any person with with the contents of their bag comprised of those things. Absolutely not one person. It's just not trustworthy.
Abby, let me ask you something else. We discussed the Washington Post. What do you think about what's happening at CBS? Bill Owen, the editor of the great 60 Minutes, has left, saying that he was getting interference and it wasn't how he could do the show anymore, their flagship show. What are your thoughts about that?
we just had a great conversation about that on the show. And, the price of entry, I think, for the corporate people and corporate entities that own news organizations, this includes the Washington Post, is some kind of capitulation to Trump on things that are important to him. And when it comes to CBS, he's been mad about CBS for a long time. Remember he walked out on Leslie Stahl in that interview years ago, and so he's been upset about that for a long time. But the question I have for the people who are running these companies is, when do you think it will be enough? At
Hmm.
what point do you think you would have given enough to Trump that he will leave you alone and give you what you want? I think that is the question right now. And
Yeah.
as somebody who's covered Trump, I am not sure they understand that the answer might not be, oh, we just give him that little thing and he'll be fine and then we'll be able to get our sale. I
Yeah.
think that the Trump 2.0 mode right now is like, let's destroy it all. And I'm not sure that he would be satisfied until CBS, the Washington Post, and all of his other, as he describes it, his enemies are essentially destroyed. And so you really have to think about, how far are you willing to go? And is it going to be worth it? And I'm not sure that they're really thinking this all the way through, because I think there's a sense that, oh, maybe if we give a little bit here and a little bit there, everything will be fine. And I think that might be a colossal miscalculation.
Oh, yeah.
It's extraordinary. I didn't know that Bill Owens was only the third EP or editor of 60 Minutes. What that tells you about that piece of American society is that this is not a sort of like go where the wind blows news organization. And I think to damage the reputation of these types of institutions is so dangerous because it is so easy to destroy a reputation. It is so hard to build it. So I think people need to think very carefully about what they are willing to chip away at in this moment, because it's not going to be easy to get it back.
Could not agree more. Couldn't agree more.
We had Andrew Cuomo on the podcast last week, who, as you know, is also from Queens like Trump is. And he said that the thing that you have to understand with Trump, with whom he's had many dealings over the year, is that the minute Trump pokes you in the chest, if you don't poke him straight back, he will just push you against the wall, and that you have to meet force with force. And the idea of compromising makes no sense to Trump. He just sniffs weakness. And I just spent this week, I spent yesterday with a couple of tech friends, one of whom used to work closely with Mark Zuckerberg, who said that the assumption was that Mark turning up at the inauguration meant that somehow the antitrust suit against him, which is currently rolling through the courts, as we all know, would not happen, that they would get some kind of compromise. And it does seem like Trump is just, he doesn't care how much you capitulate. He just wants more.
He just wants more.
That's exactly my point. I think it's just the truth is that if you know the people who are kind of behind the ideological underpinnings of what Trump wants to do now that he has the presidency for a second time, they're not interested in just kind of taking a swipe at the media. I think they really want a complete overhaul of the entire hierarchy, the system that we live in on all fronts: economics, media, law, politics, everything. So I don't think that they are just going to be interested in a weakening of CBS, a weakening of the Washington Post. So just as I think that's the baseline, everybody needs to understand that and act accordingly. And I think that that's when we look at what's happening with Harvard, I think that is also what we're seeing there, is that there's really only one entity, maybe two or three, okay, that can do what they're doing right now. And so if they don't do it, no one will do it. So that's why that particular legal fight is extremely important, because I think it is going to test what happens when the only people who can push back actually push back, and what happens next.
And you went to Harvard.
Yeah, you must be
I
so
did.
proud. You
Yeah.
must be so proud, extra proud now. Now you can just say it out loud. You don't have to say, I went to school in the Boston
Well,
area.
look, I mean, I went to Harvard, but I'm not like, look, when I was growing up, I was the only person I knew who ever went to Harvard. So it was a strange land for me when I went there. And Harvard has a lot of ups and downs and good things and bad things. But I think it's just a simple fact that they've got a lot of power in the educational ecosystem. They have a lot of money. They are larger than some entire countries' economies. They have to decide what they're going to do in this moment. And I think that, just anecdotally, because people are constantly texting me about this and the conversation in the Harvard community, and this has been written about, donations have skyrocketed. I think there has been a unity that at this moment has created among people affiliated with the university, including Jewish students and Hillel and all of these other entities, Jewish entities that are on campus, to say this is a bridge too far. And I'm not sure that's what Trump was expecting, but that's been the result. And the university needs to take seriously not only how do they respond to Trump, but also what are they going to do to make sure that something like this never happens again? Which means, okay, how did it get to this point? Are they getting ahead of what's happening on their own campuses so that it doesn't become a headline that can be politicized by any politician down the road?
This was great. This was a great conversation. I've enjoyed hearing from you. I think you are a
Thanks,
great
Meryl.
voice out there, and I'm just so happy that you're doing what you're doing. And it's just a very entertaining show. to witness, and so uncomfortable in the best possible way.
Well, and congratulations on the 5 too. I mean, I feel that television may be withdrawing, but Abby Phillips is Abby Phillip. I should say.
Yes.
There's no S at the end of
No,
your name. Abby Phillip is on the rise.
We're cannibalizing 6 out of the 7 days of people's weeks, which is great. And Joanna, you're so great on Table for Five, which is the Saturday show, which I think we try to make it a little bit more laid back, but sometimes things get a little heated there too. But I've been so happy with how the show has turned out. I was very nervous about this format going into it, thinking that it would just be kind of like another boring round table. But I think what makes it good is just the awkwardness, Sam.
yes, I
The
agree.
awkwardness. It feels very awkward.
Just a tad uncomfortable
Yep.
because it's like real.
Yes.
And that moment is when people realize, oh, wait, this is real life. And I think that's what makes it super interesting. And I love walking out of the studio every night and being like, well, that was unexpected. Like, whoa, what just happened there? Because I like being surprised by my own show.
Oh my, that's great.
Yeah. All right. Well, Abby, thank you for joining
you
us.
so
Great
much.
to have you. And we look forward to watching your continued success.
Thank you, Joanna. Thanks, Sam.
If you have been listening, thank you. Please share, subscribe, comment, do whatever you would like with this episode.
Tell everyone you know, ring-a-ding-ding, the Daily Beast has a podcast, and keep sending those emails to beastpod@thedailybeast.com. Drop us a comment on YouTube. Joanna reads them. She ingests them. She'll get back to you.
I've been super bad about getting back to people for the last couple of weeks, but I promise I will do. I have a long plane ride on Friday, and I plan to go down the YouTube spiral.
Perfect. Perfect.
And if you're not a subscriber to the Daily Beast, it's very easy to sign up, and you really should support independent journalism. Just go to thedailybeast.com.
Well, this was a great episode. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you to everyone. And you know, as my personal muse, and she is out there inspiring us, attending Pope's funerals, doing whatever, reading storybooks to children, just out there. And she is saying once again, and thank God, be best.
Sam, it's
What?
B-Beast. It's B-Beast.
I'm never gonna get it right. Ugh.